Today, our leaders are Chris Dyer and Kim Shepard. They are the authors of the new book about remote work. They are both experienced CEOs that have built successful remote teams and businesses. And I have invited them to join us because I met Chris through our work at Lucid Meetings. So at Lucid Meetings, if you're not familiar with our company and this is your first time coming to one of our events, it is our mission to help teams run successful meetings every day. We are a meeting innovation company, which means we host events like this one and we conduct research. And one of the companies that I stumbled upon that had a fabulously interesting, rich, high-functioning meeting operating system was the company led by Chris. So I am very excited for him to get an opportunity to share some of what they've developed and learned over time with you all. So welcome, and I will turn it over to you, Chris and Kim.
Well, thank you so much for having us, and I'm going to pull up the screen here and we'll get the slides going. And yes, Elise is right, but I must admit that most of the things that I learned, either I learned from Kim or I sort of iterated from Kim. So I brought Kim along because she's in many ways a lot of the things, the creator of some of our best ideas that we use today. And really, Kim and I met at a CEO roundtable. We were kind of the two crazy people who would argue with anybody and would push buttons and were willing to like throw up on the table, like, you know, figuratively, with our personal lives or our businesses or whatever. And we instantly became friends. And she's been a great mentor to me. And then she went and sold her company, made a bunch of money, and she was bored. And I said, hey, you want to write a book? And she said, sure, that sounds like fun. And so we decided to write this book, Remote Work, which we started before the pandemic. Does that make us smart? No, I think it just makes us lucky. It was just good luck. So, or bad luck for everybody else, but good luck for us, I guess. But I'm super excited to be here today with Kim and to show you all the different secrets and different things that we've used with our remote companies. She's been remote with her company since 2001, and I was since 2009. So Kim, I'll turn it back over to you to say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm looking forward to doing whatever it is we're going to do in the next couple hours. Chris and I, as he mentioned, we met at the CEO roundtable that was like these wicked smart people. And it was kind of like being on a train. I was always in the caboose with my hand on the rail outside with my body flailing in the air. And Chris and I were two people that were, I think, the most practical. Like we would take an idea and we would chew on it. And I actually took my company remote in 2002, the beginning of 2002, on the back of the 9/11 pandemic, I call it. And then Chris wanted to take his company remote on the stock crash, housing market crash pandemic. And so he and I started kind of gnawing on some ideas. And back when I took my company remote, there was nobody to follow. No one, if anyone had done it, Google wasn't strong enough to tell me about it. So I kind of had to make everything up as I went along. And then Chris, so he calls me the curator or the creator,
inventor. Yeah.
The creator. He's the ideator. And he would take some concepts that I had and morph them to work for his company, which is exactly what you want to do with ideas. Take a good idea and morph it around you and make it better. And we just became lifelong friends. We decided to write this book in November of 2019, as Chris said, before the pandemic. And it was an absolute blast. And even the concept of saying that the process of writing a book was fun is somehow twisted and wrong. But it was. And so what we want to do today is just share some tips revolving around meetings, good meetings, bad meetings, that we can share with you from some of the potholes that we stepped in that maybe we can help you avoid moving forward.
So if you'd like to grab a copy of the book, if you're in the UK, you can get it from our publisher Kogan page pretty easily. If you're in the United States, Amazon, or if you would like to get it for maybe a few people in your company, we'll actually have some really cool giveaways where if you buy 10 or more copies, you get 50 other companies, including Lucid Meetings, has all sorts of amazing things are giving away to help anybody who wants to be better at remote. So that's our plug. Now we'll tell you all the cool stuff we know. So I wanted to sort of start today off with a little bit of a story. And it's sort of like, what if maybe we're not doing meetings right? Maybe what if there's some better ways to do meetings? And maybe that's why we're all here today. The story is that for years, my wife and I would have a party in the summer. We would invite all of our friends. We are those people that stay connected with like that person we met on the airplane the one time. I mean, we sort of, we'll stay really connected to anyone who's willing to stay connected with us. And we would invite 50, 60 people, and maybe 20, 25 would show up, and that was pretty normal. Have a little barbecue, kids swim in the pool, have a good time. But I was always like, well, why do all those other people RSVP but they don't show up, right? We invite 60. Why does only 20 show up? Why does 25 show up? That was in the back of my mind. Well, we went to Germany and Austria and the Czech Republic one year with my boys, and we went to every beer garden you could possibly imagine. And we decided, let's change the party. Let's have a beer garden party in the summer instead of having just a general pool party. And because I was so excited about the beer garden culture, I decided that I was going to make this party really strict. I was going to have all these rules about what beer garden was going to be. And so I told everyone we're only going to have beers from Germany, Austria, or the Czech Republic. If you bring Coors Light, I will throw it on the street. It will not be allowed in my home, right? You must dress up either in traditional lederhosen and German fare, or you need to wear, German colors, German flag colors, or Bavarian colors. But you got to dress up somehow, right? You got to be into the party. We're only going to have Bavarian food. I got giant pretzels from this German market. I mean, they're gigantic, like they're bigger than your face. And it was amazing to me that the first year we did this, 65 people showed up. The next year, 85. The next year, 100. And the last year we did it right before COVID, 150 people showed up to my house. There were other rules, like kids were only allowed when the sun was up. When the sun went down, no more kids, right? It was pretty normal for my drummer of my old band to like show up in the middle of the day, half drunk, and be throwing children in the pool, to the parents' dismay, right? So we tried to separate these two groups of people up a little bit. But I was like, why did this work? Why is it me being the dictator of the party and putting all these rules in place? Why was that attractive to people? Why did they show up? And I realized that they needed to know how to act and what to expect and when to show up and when to leave and what will we eat and when is it okay for my kids to be there and when is it not? And all of that stuff made it better for them. And that was so counterintuitive to me that we have just taken that and run with it with everything we do in the business side as well. So that's kind of the first thing I would love for all of you to do in your breakout session is to, I think we're going to put you all in groups. I don't know if you want me to explain this, Elise, or if that's you, but.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and let your slide go so we can see each other for a second.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put you all into groups of, Julie, what are we, 3 to 4?
I've got all group 4, one group 5. Oh, no, all 4.
See, I told you it would happen. Somebody's like, I'm going to have to talk. I'm bounced.
People are moving. So 3 to 4. 3 to 4.
Yeah, so you're all in groups of 3 to 4. And we've set up some Google Slides. And what we would love for you to do is to go into the Google Slides and actually, let me just show you what those look like. So there's no mystery about how to succeed here, just like Chris said. So the slides look like this. And when you pop in here, you'll find that there are sets for each breakout group. So when you're whisked off into the breakout group, it'll say entering breakout group 1, entering breakout group 2. So right here, you can see it says group 1. And then you'll slide down and here's a set of slides for group 2. In this first session, the instructions are in the chat. We would love for you and your group to get to know each other. Say hi, claim your slides, and then give your group a name. Any name you want. What is the spirit? What is the identity for your particular group? Give it a name. And then on the second slide, explore. What does a good meeting look like for you and in your world? Chris, anything else you want to add to that?
I have one thing. There's no bad answer. So when you're throwing stuff, pretend this is a whiteboard. There is no bad answer because a silly answer will sometimes spawn a better answer. So capture everything that's said.
All right, you've got 10 minutes. Enjoy, everybody. Oh, there it is. Look at everybody. Welcome back. We saw some really fun, creative names happening in these groups. And just a quick note for those of you who can't access Google Docs, hopefully you're in a room with someone who can. So have each other's backs, please. But all right, Chris, all yours.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for doing that. We saw, she said, some amazing notes, some common themes that I'm so happy to know you all already agreed. Start on time, end on time, right? Have an agenda. There's some really common
purpose.
Yeah, I mean, really common themes there. I would love to kind of call out one or two groups real quick if they're willing to share maybe some of their thoughts. Maybe looks like Woman Strong was pretty prolific in their notes. Would someone from their group like to speak up real quick? Maybe not. Maybe they.
Oh no, Nan, you want to do that?
Yep, sorry, I had to unmute myself and I had to find the document again. Okay, so we had, let's see, everyone has a voice. People can disagree without fear of repercussion, include the right people. It's okay to ask questions, admit mistakes, make people feel comfortable being themselves, build psychological safety, collaborative, challenge each other's thinking, productive conflict, recognition of success, good work, celebrations, personal introductions, high lows, temperature taking, next steps, have some fun.
Awesome. And then we had the brown-haired badasses.
Hey, hang on. I have to touch on the last one because that's it. Have some fun. Don't forget that one because we put all the discipline things in. You got to start on time. You got to have a leader. You got to have a purpose. You got to have an agenda. You got to blah, 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 blah. But if you can instill making it fun, which tracks to Chris's story about the beer garden. He put all these rules in, and then all of a sudden it was more fun because of it, but fun was the main theme. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. Anything else to add? We're just from the brown-haired badasses?
Well, we had a couple of things. The first thing was somewhere with good weather. Quick decisions are made and value added. Frustrations with bureaucracy. Everyone is heard and opinions are valued. Participants see value in speaking, meeting with each other, feeling that there is less work because of the meeting and conversation. Had a defined purpose before the start. It's efficient. It's where you are comfortable, when everybody found it good, and when you have results.
And I have a question from the hours group. You had netiquette, and I don't know what that is. I suspect what it is, but I would love to hear what that is and why you put it on your list.
I'm gonna go. We're talking about etiquette. So I was saying, well, etiquette is in real life and netiquette is in virtual life. So it's like etiquette on the net.
Love that. Chris, we need to steal that.
Yeah, someone needs to copyright that quick.
That's an old term, that one.
Is it? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's been a while. It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Or date me. Go ahead.
There we go.
Excited. It's going to be a long hour for you guys.
All right. So let's go ahead. I think what we want to do now is to talk to you about some of the things that we have seen and done that can help you with all the things that you have already sort of brought to that. So the first one is tribal speak, and I'll let Kim go ahead and start that one off.
Sure. So there's a lot of things that happen in the course of a meeting, a gathering, a whatever, that we kind of lose and we don't grab onto and make it part of the glue, because that's what you really want to do with everything that you guys listed. You want to make that part of the glue. You want to make all of that happen. And tribal speak is something that is often overlooked. So in my company, because I'm a little wacky, tribal speak was critical. And so much so that before I sold my company, I had an email go out towards the end of my 20 years with the company, and it literally said, send out the green flag. We just landed a chunky monkey, but flag the cockroach team because the dog has fleas. That is literally what the email said, and everybody knew what it meant in my company. And so the point is not that you care about what all of it means. You care about the fact that that is the glue that everybody is kind of in on the circuit, on the secret. And so what that really said, send out the green flag, which anything good that happened is a green flag. And Chris adopted this and it works really well. And that comes from a story with me at a San Diego zoo with a monkey, and it had a little green piece of cloth and I was yelling, I got the green thing. And it was a funny story from even before most of my employees were with the company. That story kind of circulated to everybody else. So send out the green flag, which means something good happened. We landed a chunky monkey, a big client, we got a new big client, but flagged the cockroach committee, and you're going to hear about cockroaches in a minute. Those are little problems that are pesky because the dog has fleas. The client has some cumbersome issues revolved around him. So send out the green flag. We just landed a chunky monkey, but flag the cockroach committee because the dog has fleas. Everybody in my company knows what that means. That adds to the glue. You guys in your breakout sessions just now, use some tribal speak that you probably didn't grab onto. Even just the naming of your teams is tribal speak. The badasses, the hours group, all of those names creates tribal speak that you guys now, when we go into our next breakout session, you've already grabbed onto, and it adds glue to a meeting that we threw at you 10 minutes ago that you now have glue attached to because of tribal speak.
And Kim used the green flag on email, but this has progressed and I'll show you live. This is my Slack channel for my company. And you can see we use a water cooler room, and this is where we thank everyone. We do green flags in real time. Someone says, hey, Mike just said this morning, Bobby just landed, he's a brand new salesperson for us. He just landed 2 new clients, and everyone pops in and says, yeah, great job, way to go, gives a green flag. That's how we celebrate. That's part of our tribal speak inside of our organization to thank somebody, right? It's public. Everyone can see it. Now, we don't game it. No one gets any extra money or prizes or gift cards because of it. It's just purely altruistic, right? It's just to thank somebody. And so we use that term all the time, and it works really, really well.
So be aware of your tribal speak and grab onto it. It's really valuable real estate.
So we want to talk a little bit about how you formulate your teams. Some really great research out of Google. Some of you may know it, but really some of the specific things that I took from that research that we use all the time, that's really, really important, is that teams should be self-forming. And that one sometimes is hard for people to really grasp or to put into play. If you decide to be a salesperson at a company, you have joined the sales team and you have essentially, it's self-forming, right? You have volunteered to be on that team. You're not there because you had to, right? You're there because you want to. So but if you're doing a special project, the worst thing you can do is say, you, and you, I need you to go and figure this thing out, right? The opposite should happen. Hey, we have this thing we need to get done. Who would like to help with that? Who would like to be on that committee or in that group? And that shift in psychology that someone has volunteered, they have raised their hand and said, I can do that, right? I've been there. In my last company, we did exactly that thing. I have a lot to offer. It's been shocking to me sometimes when people have different experiences than what their job is today. And if I had assumed that only my sales and marketing people should be on this meeting and not this customer service person, I would have missed out on so many kind of better solutions.
You know, Chris, let me jump on that real quick, because that could lead you to believe that, okay, there's so many stand-up meetings that have to take place in that department, in that committee, in that thing, and you can't self-form it. You are assigned. However, you can trick it a little bit, and by asking the members of the team, are you still a vital part of this meeting, and them saying, yes, I am, because I'm part of the biz dev team, I'm part of the accounting team. As soon as you do that, it gives the appearance and the feeling and the successful outcome of a self-forming group.
Yeah. The second thing is it should be 5 to 7 members. Jeff Bezos is pretty famous for saying, if 2 large pizzas won't feed your team, there's too many people there, right? So it needs to be a group that can work and can communicate. I think if you have more than 7 people on a call, it's a workshop or a webinar or a training or something, right? There isn't a lot of collaboration happening when you get above 7. It's really one person telling a group of people some stuff, or 1 or 2 people. So 5 to 7 is really that key area. In less than 5, I find it really hard to get momentum. It's really hard to get a lot of things done for a project. And then we want to establish these 3 unique norms. And this is super important and often overlooked because we think we work with people all the time and we think we know what we would do, but we need to decide what success looks like. This happens about half the time, but it's still shocking to me when I go into organizations to help them and I'll go and observe a group and I'm like, okay, so what does success look like? And they haven't even identified what their actual goals are. But they sort of have a general idea, but they haven't come up with very specific. Kim and I always use the term KPIs, right? What is this key performance? What is this goal? What is this thing we're supposed to do? What does failure look like? Almost no one talks about this before we start a project. If we failed, what would happen? We wouldn't have the resources. We wouldn't get senior buy-in. The client wouldn't like the product. I mean, whatever those things are, so that you can avoid failing, right? We can get those things out into the light so we can deal with them. And then the last one, which I think is the most important, is to decide as a group, how will we handle conflict? If you don't decide this in advance, number one, you'll avoid conflict, right? So you won't get real conversations. Everyone will just be passive aggressive and pretend that they're okay and, bring that sort of bad energy. And number two, if there is a conflict, then there will be just come total shutdown, right? The group just suddenly loses momentum and can't get anything done. So what are those conflict resolutions? At my company, I tell them, I don't care. It's whatever they decide. What we see, they might bring an outside manager in to make the final decision. So who's independent to the group. They might just say democracy. If there's an odd number of people, we just vote, and whatever the group votes, that's how we get past the conflict. Some groups say the group leader makes the final decision. We will all give our input. We will trust the group leader. Whatever they decide, we'll move forward with that. It doesn't matter as long as they have a conflict solution in advance. This has also been being put into colleges and universities right now with a lot of group projects, and they're finding this is improving the group project dynamic because it's often the conflict area that causes groups to not function very well because they don't have a solution.
And also by addressing number 2, failure, it allows that, it kind of sets up that conflict conversation, and it makes it okay. Because if you can articulate what failure would look like, any conflict to prevent that failure is eased by addressing that first. Everybody runs to success. We all do that innately. This is what's going to be great. But we want to avoid the icky part. And if you address the icky part, it helps for conflict resolution.
So in the spirit of tribal speak and in the spirit of creating.
Chris, one quick question.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Brian had a question in the chat, and I think it's a good one. He asked, why do you need unique norms as opposed to like departmental ones, or what did you mean by unique?
Do you mean inside of the anatomy of a team? Okay. Yeah. So I noticed that my research team, for example, almost always their conflict resolution, their norm is they will give their opinion, and whatever the manager decides is what they want. My sales team would hate that. They do it totally, they vote, and then whatever the group decides, right? It's not their boss who makes the final decision. They all want an equal vote into it. So I think different groups of people meeting for different reasons have a different expectation of how they want to deal with those norms. So that I find that to be far more successful than me as the CEO saying everyone will use this strategy, because that's not necessarily lines up with them. My research team is inherently introverts and my sales team is inherently extroverts. They have a totally different view of how to deal with this and how they want to act and how they want to collaborate. So we're going to walk you through some of the meetings that we use all the time. Since 2009, my company's done over 100,000 of these meetings that we've been able to track. Now, Kim was the original inventor of the cockroach meeting. So I'm going to let her kind of tell you how she deals with cockroach meetings. And then we sort of already covered that a little bit. And then I'll kind of tell you how we're doing it today in live.
And it doesn't really matter what kind of a meeting you're holding. The point of what we're going to walk you through in the next, I think 5 or 6 different kinds of meetings is that we've catered them to the exact need that we needed for an exact kind of meeting. So cockroach meetings. So I had a company with 120 employees, and it was a high volume recruitment firm. I had 96 stay-at-home moms, changing babies' diapers and on the phone. They were putting candidates with hiring managers. That was their job. They did it all day long. They did it really, really well. I didn't care how they did it because we were virtual. I didn't care when they do it, just get your job done so I can measure your KPI, your key performance indicator. So I realized that they needed some connectivity. So I created the concept of a cockroach meeting where I put random people into pods of 3 or 4 people that would meet for half hour to an hour, up to them, 1 day a week, usually Monday in the morning before everything got going crazy. And the purpose of this meeting was to help kill each other's cockroaches. So what's a cockroach? So I have recruiters. A cockroach is that pharmacy position in Petaluma, California, where I did everything right and I still can't get enough candidate flow for the hiring manager to make a hire. That's a cockroach. The other members of the team then would say, you know what I did when a year ago I had a position for a biochemical engineer and I couldn't get enough, so I went off and I did this, or I appealed to that, or I tried that, and they jump in. They have to start these calls in a chant. This is my cult that goes like this: we are here to kill cockroaches. That way they're not talking about what they did over the weekend, the yoga pants they just bought, whatever. They are there to kill cockroaches. A cockroach is a pesky little thing that just needs some more clever ideas to make it go away. That's the way I invented and used cockroaches. Didn't matter what kind of meeting it is. It was laser nosed for a purpose.
And now the cockroach meeting has evolved into my company. And I use the example of, if you have a cockroach in the bathroom, it's a small problem. You might not want to be the one who cleans it up, and you probably need help, right? So cockroach meetings for us are 15 minutes or less, always start on time, never go over. In fact, our goal is to always end early. It is 5 to 7 people. It is optional to attend, and anyone may call a cockroach and invite anyone they want. There is no hierarchy, right? So if you think that, the head of sales and the CEO and someone in customer service and a marketing person can help you because you have the specific, you call those 5 people together. It's optional for me to come. If I can't go, I decline. If I don't think I can help, I decline. If I'm too busy, I decline.
What's wonderful about this is we have morphed this concept into totally different reasons. Mine was bonding from afar with a single purpose to kill a cockroach. That was yours was to actually kill a cockroach, get in, get out. So it doesn't matter what you do with the meetings. Both of these examples illustrate meetings with intent, which when I look at all the whiteboards that you guys did, that was one of the biggest themes that you had: start on time, end on time, and have intent.
So we do about 35 of these as an organization a day, and they last about 7 minutes on average. So people are just getting together very quickly to, okay, here's my problem, how do we fix it? And then they're off. And so they come together, they're off, come together, they're off, and they're constantly helping each other all day. The second meeting has the same format and the same rules, except it's called an ostrich meeting. And this was the one, I invented this one because I kept having the problem of people asking me to be on a meeting to help with something that I had no idea what they were doing, right? They would come to me and say, we're trying to close this big client. They're going to bring their CEO on the call. We want you to be on the call. And I'd be like, let's have a meeting so you can tell me what I don't know. You can help me get my head out of the sand. So this is purely just tell me, just get me caught up. When people come back from vacation, they are required to have an ostrich meeting with their boss, the very first thing they do, and they do 2 things. One, they get caught up, right? What's been happening? What did they miss? And number 2, we have them delete all their emails in their inbox. So they start at inbox 0. That's their ostrich meeting when they come back from vacation. so that you will actually take your vacation and not feel dread coming back to a pile of work and 3,000 emails. So we use those ostrich meetings to help fill us in, get us caught up. We're not solving problems. This is just tell me what I need to know. The next one is a tiger team. Now, if you have a tiger in your bathroom, it's a much bigger problem, right? Imagine all of the things you would need to get a tiger out of your bathroom. Maybe a dart gun, animal control, a team of people, a crane. I mean, you would be, it's a big deal, right? So there's a big agenda, there's lots of prep work, and this is going to be an hour meeting, a 2-hour meeting, an all-day meeting, whatever it is. You're going to get the big client, you're going to lose the big client. It's a big deal. Unlike the cockroach, where I can just show up and tell you what I think and help you a little bit. This is, I'm prepping, we're doing a lot of work in advance, we're showing up to really deal with stuff.
And this is a meeting where you want to have people from different departments, because you don't want like-mindedness. It went from a cockroach to a tiger for a reason. It's out of control. And so you might want to pull in someone from accounting and pull someone in from IT and pull someone in from biz dev, to different minds walking around this big chunky monkey.
And in the same vein, we've even renamed our executive team meetings the Tiger's Den, right? So we meet every week to talk about the big strategic things inside the company. And we sort of think about them as these big tigers, right? So we're not dealing with any little issues. We're not filling it up with little things. We're just talking about the big things. The next one is tsunami planning. And again, Kim and I have a very different take on this. I'm going to let her kind of start with how she does it, and then I'll explain to you why we do tsunamis.
Well, let me start by telling you why I created the tsunami planning meeting to begin with. When I went remote, and I was striving for connectivity, because it wasn't like today when everyone's remote, everyone kind of, back then in 2002, I had to start every meeting with a prospective client by saying, we're a legitimate company. I have over 100 employees. We're really, we're real. We're not making, lock boxes from the back of our garage. We're an actual company. We just happen to be remote. And it was almost unheard of at that time. One of the things that I saw that was lacking in my cultural glue was the ability for my people to think bigger than the hamster wheel. I got a candidate, I got a hiring manager, I'm going to put them together, I'm on a hamster wheel, It's like, no, I need, for their mental health, I need them to think bigger. So the concept of tsunami was to present a tiger topic that has not happened yet and get everybody thinking about this thing that has not happened yet. For example, I had my annual all staff, again, 100 employees in breakouts. So I had all these different breakouts with 5 people in each one, very much like a tiger meeting, but a tiger meeting would address something that needs to be addressed today. What I said to my team is, imagine that you have $1 million to spend to make this company better. Go spend it. Now, I could have said $50,000, which would have been legitimate, and here's what they would have done. Their brain would have gone to spending $50,000. But by giving them a number, $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, it's doing what I want them to do. I want their brain to embrace something that hasn't happened, something that's bigger than their confined thinking. And ironically, what was really cool about that, and the tsunami could be, what if I get hit by a bus? What if our business doubles? What if 90% of our business goes away overnight? It can be anything you want it to be. This particular one, which was really fun, is I gave them $1 million of imaginary money to spend. And they all did whiteboards. And I took all the whiteboards home. And 90% of the things that they came up with didn't cost a penny. It was by letting their brains go bigger than an actual tactical problem. They came up with creative solutions that didn't cost a penny, and I instituted all of them.
So what I noticed was the same thing that Kim's describing. We did some of those exercises, but I observed that my people, for the first time, were really getting animated. They were getting heated with each other. They were getting excited with each other. They were really pushing back and talking. And I go, where has this been? Why is this not happening in traditional meetings? Why is this only happening in this imaginary meeting? So we morphed it to say, Every department must have at least one tsunami planning meeting for 30 minutes every month. And they come up with a topic. And it's a fake topic, a future thing, and they have to talk about how they would solve it. And what we discovered was this was the place to create psychological safety. By giving them a fake meeting and a fake topic, they were not in danger of looking stupid. They were not in danger of getting fired if they didn't agree with their boss. They weren't, they could be their true self with their team because this was not game time, right? If we think about sports, how much time is spent in sports practicing versus the actual game, right? Most of it is practicing. And we don't do any practicing of meetings. So this is our practice every month. The leader shows that they're going to do a good job facilitating. Everyone shows they're going to do a good job participating. We're not going to be mean to each other. No one's going to tell someone they're stupid. Boss isn't going to fire you for disagreeing with them. This is how we create the connection. And then we notice in real meetings, they carry that on. They keep doing this type of activity that we really want from them. So if you're struggling to see your people to really feel safe enough to be a little excited and animated and even confrontational in meetings, you might need to practice this. David Marquet in his book, Turn the Ship Around, used to have the submarine, he's on the submarine, he's trying to turn this whole ship around, and he would bring his senior level people in and they had to practice delivering him bad news because they were so bad at it that they would avoid coming to him and delivering bad news. If you're on a submarine and you don't get the bad news and you don't fix the problem, you're going to die, right? This is a nuclear submarine. This is a big deal. And yet his senior people couldn't deliver him bad news consistently. So they practiced it and got comfortable with it and saw what his reaction was going to be. So this is really one of the big tools that you can take back to your organization to improve your other regular meetings.
And it is as big as you make it big. So I know we have a lot of international people on this call, but in the United States, we have a grocery store called Trader Joe's. And it's, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's really cool. It's really hip. It's inexpensive, high quality food. It's a little bit of a cult. And years ago, many years ago, could have been 20 years ago, I met with the then CEO of Trader Joe's and I was discussing my TSUNAMI concept. And he's like, oh my God, let me tell you my version of TSUNAMI. And again, I apologize for anyone who doesn't know what Trader Joe's is, but call it the Starbucks of grocery stores.
It's the hippie Mark and Spencer's. Go ahead.
So what he did is he wanted to enhance the corporate culture. And he went and randomly selected people from different stores, flew them all over to Southern California, put them in a swanky hotel and said, you have until Sunday night to come up with 4 things you want from me to make your experience as a Trader Joe's employee better. Now think about that door he just opened. It could be dental, vision, better, could be anything, a corporate car, it could have been anything. But because it was already a great company that he wanted to make better, here's the 4 things they came up with. We want to wear jeans every day of the week. We want to wear Hawaiian shirts whenever we want to. We want to be able to give away boxes to anybody who buys booze because the people think them. And finally, we want to be able to interact with our customers and ask them, how are you going to prepare that steak? Are you barbecuing this weekend? Why'd you buy 6 ears of corn? We want to be able to interact. Because it was already a great culture, those were the things, the 4 things of anything they could have asked for. There were no rules. That's what they came up with. That's the power of the TSUNAMI planning meeting.
And now that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
Those 4 things. So I think we're running a little behind here, so we're going to have to move a little bit quick, Kim. But the last one sort of meetings is this concept of feed forward. So if anyone is struggling with someone in a meeting or after a meeting with maybe kind of how they're acting, think about reversing your language instead of going back to them and saying, if I had a bad meeting with Elise, I could go to her and say, in that last meeting, you were really a jerk to Tom, or you talked too much, you did this thing. She's going to be defensive, right? But if I say, hey, in the next meeting, can you make sure everyone's heard? In the next meeting, can you make sure that you help me, create an environment that's really respectful? And that puts her in the position of being in the driver's seat and say, sure, I can help you with that. I can do that. Or if there's some reason that's really driving her behavior in a bad way, she's going to say, well, I just feel like in those meetings, no one's listening to me, right? Now we can have a coaching session. Now we can talk about what's going on with that person. But when we give them feed forward, it's positive. When we give them feedback, it's negative. So think about changing your language as you want to sort of construct your meetings and how you help people think about their next meeting being a little bit better. So our next breakout, and we might want to, I'll leave it to you, Elise, on how much time we should give them here, just kind of knowing where we are. But we would like for you to go back into your slides and just identify what are some of your cockroaches right now? What are some of the things you wish you could call a meeting on to get help with in your organization? Just to kind of flush some of those ideas out to kind of see what cockroaches are for you.
And remember, this is Cockroach. You're requesting free feedback. Elise, 5?
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Related to business or whatever. Yeah. It could be a cockroach on your personal life if you want, but I think the question is meant for business. I think Mario asked that.
All right, everybody, 5 minutes, same groups, same slides. Go ahead and find some cockroaches. There we go. It's the magic fill-in. I love this part. I love this part. Boom, 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 boom. Here comes everybody. Welcome back. So we saw you adding cockroaches, some of which did not look that small. So I'll be very fascinated to hear how that conversation went. All yours, Chris.
Anyone from Meeting Spicer wanna jump in and tell us a couple of your cockroaches?
One of ours was this absence of trust. Like you have the big guys in a meeting and everybody knows there's an elephant in the room, but nobody speaks up because whatever you say might be used against you. So that we found a bit hindering.
It's actually good because we thought when we just read it, that would be a tiger. That would be a much bigger thing. But if you did get a couple people together just to help you, how do I build trust in this specific meeting with this specific people? That would be a cockroach. So that's a really good example. Yeah, good job. All right, well, I know we're 10 o'clock here. We got about 30 minutes left. So let's go ahead and keep going, keep rolling. We'll get into some of the other, oops, get rid of all my junk here. There we go.
Chris, you sure you don't want to back up and hear another cockroach? Because
we could. I was just worried about time because we've got a lot of slides. So.
All right. Okay. We can always do that at the end.
Yep. So the last part of our presentation is using this thing called brain tricks, which is just a nicer way of saying cognitive biases. And what are the things that we can know, learn, and use to our advantage or don't use to our advantage at work in dealing with lots of different people who have lots of different ways they think. To Martin's question about difficult people, right? We may find certain strategies that can really help us. As a baseline, I always point everyone to Daniel Pink's work on autonomy, mastery, and purpose. If you don't have these 3 things, it's pretty hard to be happy at work. It's pretty hard to be a good contributor and a team player if you feel like you're being micromanaged, if you're not learning new things, and if you're not tied to the company's purpose. Any one or more of these things are offline. I mean, you're either going to be miserable or you're going to be looking for a new job. So if you're concerned about somebody at your office, this is a really good place to start and to figure out what might be broken. The next one is really simple, but so I don't know if any of you are familiar with Daniel Kahneman or Amos Tversky, excuse me. Some really famous psychologists who did a lot of work around cognitive biases. And they wrote a book called Think Fast and Slow, which I think is really slow and boring. There's a better version of that called The Undoing Project by Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball, if you saw that really good movie that Brad Pitt was in. But they did all of these studies, they did all these things to try to figure out behaviors. And what they found was some really, really scary things, which was that people were likely to say yes or no based on environmental factors. So if you're too hot or you're too cold, you will go to your default answer. And for most people, the default answer is no. So that's the great thing about remote work is we all can control our own thermostat. But you know, if you're in an office setting and it's really cold or it's really hot, you're not likely to get the answer you want if the answer is yes, if that's what you're looking for. If you get a team of people together and you guys need to make some really key decisions and you choose to do that at 11:30 in the morning right before lunch, they're going to tell you no. They're going to be tuned out because our subconscious brain is telling us, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. When's lunch? I want to eat, I want to eat. Stop this meeting. I want to eat, I want to eat. And that's all we're focused on. In fact, they studied parole judges in Israel to figure out how did they make their decisions. And you will find that I found this scary. But the judges were more likely to say yes early in the morning, right after breakfast. And they were more likely to say yes right after lunch when they'd eaten. And the farther they were away from those 2 points, so like right at the midpoint between breakfast and lunch, 100% of the time they said no to parole to these prisoners. So their decision was often not had anything to do with the facts of the case, whether or not that person should be released. It was how hungry were they? So if they were hungry, they just no. They started trying to get through the case as quickly as they could get to the next meal. Think how that might impact your people, your employees, your clients, your vendors, right? If we can choose, this is why having lunch with somebody, right, can often close the deal for a salesperson. So how can we rearrange our meetings to make sure that someone's not in an uncomfortable environment and that they're not hungry if we want to get better decisions out of them? The next one is the egg timer. And this is one that Kim invented. And I love this one because it's a great little trick. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, first of all, that pizza looked really good, whether it's cold or not. So the egg timer, back in 2010, I wrote my first book called The Bite Me School of Management, Taking a Bite Out of Conventional Thinking. And it was just this little quick read that always ended up in the bathroom because you get like a punchline in a page. And one of the 47 stories in there relates to time management. So in the course of any day, we're wearing so many hats, and now with social media, with our cell phones and our text messages and our emails coming in and phone calls and everything that can distract you, it's so easy to get yourself pulled off track. So back in 2010, even before we had the social media distractions that we have today, or they weren't as prevalent, I came up with this thing, and it's an egg timer. So I gave everyone in my company an egg timer, one of just those old-fashioned little, it can be any egg timer you want, but it was like the hand crank. And the concept was to set it for 45 minutes to focus for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to call clients. I'm going to call candidates. I'm going to call my staff. I'm going to put out brush fires. I'm going to think. I'm going to whatever it is that you're going to do for 45 minutes, and you do it with intent. Blah, 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 blah. The 45-minute egg timer goes off. Now, here's the important part. You reset that egg timer for 15 minutes, and you give those 15 minutes to yourself. Make a sandwich, walk the dog, return a call, get on your email, do whatever it is you want with those 15 minutes. But the critical part is you just gave 15 minutes to yourself. Now, I have very large companies with thousands of employees that have adopted this egg timer concept over the years. And they tell me that by giving, the act of giving an employee 15 minutes to do whatever it is you want gets 90 minutes of productivity from the 45 minutes of the actual work. Just hear that again. 45 minutes of focused, structured work that you can stay focused and structured because you're about to reward yourself with 15 minutes results in 90 into of productivity.
And a lot of you have picked up on this, has some very similarities to the Pomodoro effect, which you can put into practice. What Kim and I found was that it was hard to get people to want to go down this road of learn the Pomodoro effect and all this stuff. It was like, here's an egg timer, just do this thing. And that was all we told them. And it was really effective.
And I had never heard of that effect when I created the egg timer thing.
Yeah. The next thing is to try to create a level of emotional intelligence and to try to connect with people and create that psychological safety in your organization. And I learned this thing called bonding. Now, we use bonding in any meeting that is 30 minutes or more. So we don't do it in those small cockroach, ostrich meetings. We don't have time for that. But any of our larger meetings, we show up and do bonding first. So how does bonding work? First thing you do is go around the room and ask everyone how they're showing up. This tends to be a very human answer, right? Like, I'm tired. We didn't hear earlier, but Kim had to help a friend last night, and she didn't go to bed till 2:30. She showed up to this going, I'm tired, right? But I got to get my coffee. I'm going to make it, right? So I knew where Kim was at mentally, right? So everyone goes around the room and shares how they're showing up. This is a great opportunity for you to, if someone is really struggling, do you really need to be on this call? If you're really tired, if you have a newborn at home and you're exhausted, we can send you the notes. Go take care of yourself. Someone shows up and says, I just found out my grandmother passed away. Yeah, maybe we're not having a meeting right now, right? Maybe we need to cancel the meeting, or we need to help this person. They're not just going to be able to overcome all of that grief suddenly to talk about your little insignificant problem at work, right? So this allows us to realize where everybody's at in the room. When we're done with the meeting, we go around and say, how is everyone leaving? I find this is a bit more employee-centric question. So they end up saying, great meeting. I'm really excited about what we've come up with, or geez, I'm not really sure clients are going to like this. I feel like we need to do more research. I felt like the meeting was a total waste of time. I've heard that one before, right? You get some really good feedback on, what is happening. And I was surprised, as the leader of many of these meetings, how different their perception was of the meeting than what I had. And so that gave me the insight to know that person's struggling, that person's something going on, that person needs more education or needs more training, like to kind of help me tool up the different people and where they were. Now, the last part of this bonding exercise is to make sure that if the most senior people go last. So when you go around the room, if you're the most senior person in the group, you answer these questions last. And often don't even answer them if someone's struggling, if someone's having a problem, or maybe someone gave some amazing news. They just agreed to be engaged to their partner. I mean, whatever, right? I mean, maybe you just need to let the light shine on that person and that's it. But if we go first, we destroy the energy of whatever it needs to be. If I show up and say, I'm so happy, I'm amazing, they're not going to share where they're struggling. If Kim would have showed up and said, I'm really tired, I'm struggling, someone else may not have mentioned how they had something awesome just happen to them because they don't want to go against where their boss's energy is. So this exercise can really help us connect with our team or even people in our organization who we don't know that well, because we have a moment to sort of be vulnerable and to share and to talk. Hopefully that makes sense. The next one is to deal with group thought. It's another little brain trick. Now, one of the largest issues that I noticed with some of my teams is they would get in this rut where they just started making decisions the same, and there wasn't a lot of discourse into the decisions. And so we began to talk about it. And we started asking them to take on particular things. We asked everyone to start coming to their own conclusions before considering those of others. This is a little counterintuitive because we often tell people to be open-minded, to consider everyone else's thoughts, everyone else's opinions, and that's true, but you should at least come to your own opinion first. Think about what you know, what you've learned, what you're experiencing, and come to up with your own mind, and then be open to the other ideas. But if we're just open to everyone's ideas and we don't make our own initial judgment, it's hard for us to contribute in a more significant way. And then if you are a person in a meeting who feels like they want to disagree, they want to go against the flow, you want to go against the tide, we often don't feel comfortable. So what are some strategies? And we teach these strategies to our people. First one is you can ask permission to disagree. This is a very disarming statement. Hey, would everyone mind if maybe I just disagreed for a moment? Usually everyone goes, of course, we'd love to hear your opinion. Great, now you got them. No one's going to get mad at you for disagreeing, right? Because you've now set the stage. I asked you for permission. Obviously, if someone says, no, you can't disagree with me, you're probably in the wrong company, you're in the wrong team, you probably need to go, right? That's not a good environment. That's a good way to sort of bring that in. And then if that's too much for you, if you really feel like you're shy or you're brand new to the organization, then maybe try, well, what if we did this? Or what else could we do if we did, this is a great idea, you guys are amazing, but what else might we do if we didn't do this? What if we tried this other thing? And that's a great way to get people to think about new ideas and new possibilities without telling them they're wrong or they're stupid or this is a terrible idea. We could sort of bring that in. Kim, if you have anything, jump in. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep rolling. I didn't want to, it looks like you're good. Okay. The next brain trick is to start saying yes to everything. Let that one, think about that one for a second. What if, and I know there's some silly movies about this. I actually got this concept from Shonda Rhimes, who's the creator of Grey's Anatomy and a lot of other famous TV shows. She wrote a book called The Year of Yes. And I'll admit, I overheard my wife listening to this book and I thought, Shonda Rhimes, Grey's Anatomy, how dumb. And then I'm listening to this book and I go, this is really good. So I decided to read the book and it fundamentally changed me as a leader, as a person. And I began answering yes to every question that's been asked of me. It fundamentally changed me as a parent as well. Now, you can say yes and yes, but there are some ways to protect yourself. And I would not suggest you walk around telling everyone you're going to say yes to everything they ask of you. We don't want to be taken advantage of. But it fundamentally changes the conversation when your people come to you and say, hey, could you think we could try this thing? And you go, yeah, but we need to get IT involved. We need to make sure we can handle that. Yes, and we need to make sure sales can bring that into their, there's a way to say yes to everything. And if we do that, we start to realize that we start focusing on what is good in the organization. This is another one of my favorite brain tricks, because instead of maybe, if you have 10 salespeople and you have 2 that are killing it, right? They are blowing their quotas out of the water. They are awesome. And you got maybe 8 or maybe 6 of them that are doing okay. And you got 2 that are really struggling. What do we do normally? We go and we focus on the 2 that are struggling. Can we get them more training? Do we need to fire them? Do we put them on a plan? I hate that. I go to the 2 that are killing it and I say, what are you doing? How are you killing it? What's the good? Why is this working? And will you share it with everybody else? Right? How do we replicate your magic and what you're doing? What's awesome? Will those 2 people at the bottom make it? Maybe. Will you maybe have to get rid of them? Maybe. But this is really the idea of positive deviance, right? We want to focus on what is good. We want to focus on what's working, maybe in a sea of things that aren't working. And when we do that, it changes the energy for everyone.
And that kind of talks, Chris, to Tim Rath's book, Strengths Finders.
Yeah.
Which pulls out, you can tell me 8 things that I'm bad at and I can focus on those. But if you tell me the 5 things I'm good at and let me be better at the things I'm good at. So if you haven't looked up the book Strengths Finders, it's a great positive affirmation. And what's really cool, you look at the book and it's like, oh, I think it's 35 traits that you might possess. And the definitions, the actual reading of the book is maybe like 25 pages.
And this sort of ties into Kim and I's 2 favorite sayings. So my favorite saying is, what you focus on grows. So if you focus on the good stuff, that's what will grow in your organization. If you're focused on all the negative stuff, that will grow. And Kim's favorite saying is, design what you want or deal with what you get. Go ahead and say it.
I was going to join you in that chant. It's design what you want or deal with what you get. Design what you want or deal with what you get.
And someone asked about the book. It's Strengths Finders and it's Gallup. And you can also take the test online. You can go Gallup Strengths Finders and find out what your 5 strengths are. You can pay more to get your 34, but honestly, the 5 is all you need. Yeah, Strengths Finders 2.0. Great. Thank you for helping in that. And so then some of the other cognitive biases we want to think about that I like to sort of make sure that you may find that this is important and you want to dive into it more. And so I'm just going to throw 3 up here real quick. We're not going to go too deep into them. The first one is the fundamental attribution error. This is if you were walking down the street and someone bumped into you and they didn't apologize and they didn't say, excuse me, and they were on their phone and they kept walking. Our natural instinct is to say, that's a bad person. They did that because they are a man, a woman, a millennial, a Muslim, a Christian. I mean, we look at them and we make some judgment about them as a person that we can observe with our eyes to explain why they just did this horrible thing to us, right? And yet, if you walked down the street, were on the phone, you bumped into someone and you didn't say, excuse me, or I'm sorry, you would say, I was late. I was talking to my mom and she's like I think she's having a heart attack. I mean, you have all these excuses, external excuses why you did that thing. You would give yourself grace, and yet we don't give other people grace as a default. So make sure if someone is doing something at work you don't like, you don't assign it to something you can observe about them, and instead you go back and give them the same grace that you would give yourself and start asking questions. What's going on with you? Are you struggling? Is something happening with you? Not, well, you are a 20-something frat boy. Obviously, you're going to be rude to me, right? Something you can observe. No, what's going on with you? Why are you being this way, right? What's happening? And dig deeper. But just remember, it's people's natural thing to use the internal excuse and when they're judging other people.
Hey, Chris, it's 11 time check. Just want to let you know. And we still yeah.
We still have a breakout, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the halo effect, check that out. The availability heuristic. I'm happy to provide this PowerPoint and Elise can send that out. So you can take a look at these later. But I think it's important for us to kind of hop into our last breakout here real quick for 5 minutes. And we just want you to document any brain tricks that we've talked about today you think might be helpful in your organization, or any brain tricks you're already using, ideas that we might share with each other that we could think about using going forward. So off you go, right? 5 minutes.
Hey, everybody, that was a quick one. So welcome back.
We would love to hear from the Hour group. Looks like they had some cool stuff on their slides. If the spokesperson wouldn't mind walking us through that.
Well, I'm part of the
There we go.
Our group, yes. So we talked about reframing sentences. So if it's a negative sentence, kind of reframe it, or maybe if the person says something, but maybe paraphrase the negativity into your more positive intent. So it's a way of kind of checking the person. Another one was talking about that horn halo effect and that use of stereotypes. And we talked a little bit about how we can easily slip into those type of attributes to people because of how they show up in the workspace. And then the third one is when you're in a state of an amygdala hijack, you can go into grounding yourself by breathing, staying in the moment and moving more into that curiosity to get into that more positive aspect. So it's if someone's in its tensions are high in those moments, just catch yourself, breathe, share more about that perspective. So just a kind of a trick so that you don't go off into this blame or defend mode for yourself. So that's 3 things.
Nice job.
And what about, well, let's see, it was another group. Let's see, what about, who haven't we called on here? Neo-Wise meeting, did you want to share any of your brain trick ideas?
This is Judy. We just talked about how innovative it was to even think about these brain tricks. And one of them we talked about was the bonding and how wonderful it is to really find out about your people and know where they are in their headspace. So that was one of them that we really liked.
Well, great. We really appreciate everybody being here today. I think Elise was going to wrap us up, and then we'll stick around a little bit longer for anyone who wants to share or go through a little bit more. Is that right, Elise?
That's right. So we are at the end of our official time, very nearly. So before those of you who have to leave at the exact end time, go, I have a couple of notes and asks. So what to expect going forward. First of all, if you enjoyed your time here today, or if you didn't, either way, we would desperately love your feedback because as you know, we do these every couple of weeks, and knowing what works well for you and what you'd like and what you'd like to see more of and what you liked about this specifically helps us all improve. So there is a link in the chat. Click it now before you forget what's going on, and make feedback happen. That is our gift, is the session. Your gift is the feedback. Thank you so much for reciprocating. And then in the next several days, probably early next week, you can expect from us an email with a link to the edited recording, Chris, the slides, information about their fabulous book and where you can get access to that, and much More. And then finally, I would love to invite you to our next session. So for those of you in Europe, I'm afraid this one is going to be at a terrible time for you. It's later in the day. But we are hosting Braver Angels, which is an organization that is working in the United States to depolarize conversations between those on opposite sides of issues. Their focus is political. The workshop that we are hosting is about depolarization skills that apply in any context when you find yourself in a tribal conflict. So while here their focus is reds and blues on the political spectrum, it works equally well if you are sales and engineering. If you are, West Coast branch versus head office versus administration versus faculty. Anytime you find yourself in one of those situations where we start to see each other as other and need some skills to bring that together, this is what we will be focusing on in our next workshop, and we would love to see you there. And now it is exactly at past for those of you who need to go. Thank you so very much for spending time with us. And for those who would like to stay, we'd love to hear your bottom lines up front. So with that, I will relinquish back the floor, and we will stick around for another 10 minutes for anybody who'd like to hang out and chat.
I love that someone said the presentation was fun. That is a great takeaway.
Is there anybody who is still here who would like to share a bottom line up front? What is one word, phrase, or insight that you're taking away from today that you'll be able to carry forward?
I'm taking the tsunami planning. I've used it for other purposes. I called it pre-mortem. Usually before a large program or initiative, we try to do a pre-mortem, get people to independently come up with scenarios that, if it didn't work out, what would happen, or why would it have not worked out? So it's a risk management technique, but to adapt it for psychological safety, I think is brilliant. I've got to figure that out.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And I think the key, what I got from you, Kim, is that you have to kind of do it on a regular basis. You sort of need to force it, like you said, 30 minutes a month in Chris's world.
Yeah, we had to institutionalize it to make it work. Yeah.
We did it once a quarter, but it was 2 hours and it was intense. And we created a binder. So over the course of 18 years, four times a year, we had a bunch of stuff. And I can't tell you how many times we actually went to the binder and said, oh my God, we're about to double our business. What do we do? And we just pulled out the 6 pages of action steps and went in go mode. And, if I got hit by a bus, which I got sick one time and I was out of commission for a month, they just went to the binder and pulled it out. And it was invaluable. But that all falls under the design what you want or deal with what you get, right?
And so that's kind of what I'm taking away from this, is like a more thoughtful approach to meeting. I think we know all these things and we get really wrapped up in the minutia of work and the stress and all the things, and so my one word, I think just what you just said, Kim, is, design what you want or deal with what you get. That's kind of where we're at with our meetings. And so I think this is a really great kind of a kick in the butt that we can do better. So thank you.
You know what? And what can be really fun is you're going to be given access to the slides that Chris created, is, print them off and share them. And say, okay, what meeting does this fall into? And if it doesn't fall into one of the meetings, just like you guys in your breakout sessions gave yourself names, have them create the meeting that doesn't exist yet and name it. Now you've created tribal speak, you're designing what you want, I mean, it's just, that's the trick.
Something we see across all of the organizations we research that have really achieved some high levels of performance. They've all got fabulous, clever names, and they're doing a lot of the same stuff, right? So the daily check-in, that's a stand-up. Very few of them call it a stand-up. It's an adrenaline meeting. It's the hustle. It's the huddle. It's the, the pop-up. It's all kinds of things.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? When
I think Tessa's got something to say, but I can't quite hear you yet. Tessa, try again.
Go again. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Thank you for a great session today. I think for me, telling people to come with their own mind was not what I expected to take away, but is exactly what I'm taking away, which will be my cockroach, which is people just wanting to have meetings since we've moved remotely. That independent thought has gone away. That time that people would have taken to think about how to deal with issues before bringing them to the table, and using positive language to encourage people to say, you know what, before you show up, have a little think about why we're here and what you want from the people in the room, before even calling the meeting. So it wasn't what I expected. Everything else has been fantastic, but that particularly has been, it's okay to tell people that. So thank you.
Awesome.
I think my favorite piece, favorite ticket comment, ding, that's a really good one, was the asking for permission to disagree. I really like that technique. I mean, generally speaking, I don't have a problem with disagreeing with people, but asking for permission is a good way of getting them into the right frame of mind before you disagree. It kind of drops the likelihood of them being defensive, because people like to be congruent. If I've said something, I will kind of follow through to say, yes, it's all right to disagree, and then object you disagreeing kind of breaks most people's brains. They don't want to do it. One thing I will say, and it's a technique that I've applied quite a lot, and it fits into the psychological safety stuff, is I call it leading with vulnerability. Which is that it's very easy to say, be yourself, bring your whole self to work, if there's something bothering you, say so. But when the senior people in your organization give off an aura of they always have all the answers, nothing's ever wrong, nothing's ever a problem, nobody feels comfortable doing it. So particularly if you are the most senior person in the room, take the opportunity to lead with vulnerability. Share something that you're struggling with, or you're having difficulty with, or a mistake that you've made, or somewhere where you don't have all the answers. Lead by example, lead by being vulnerable.
That's great advice. Gordon, I've noticed that if I'm personally vulnerable, it works really, really well. But if I'm vulnerable in my position as the CEO, my team hates it. So if I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know, maybe maybe we will go out of business. And then they go, whoa, no. We want you to be strong. We want you to tell us everything's going to be okay. Right. But if I'm like, I'm really struggling today, I can be vulnerable as me, the human, just Chris, they love that. Right. So it's weird. Like, I think senior people have to be really careful with vulnerability sometimes. It doesn't turn into just, I don't know, throwing up on the table.
No, agreed.
Chris, the way that you and I were taught to address this through our CEO roundtable is simply asking the question, what's keeping you up at night? Right. And that allows a measured amount of vulnerability, and it also opens a door because everyone has something that's keeping them up at night.
Does anyone have another or a different takeaway that they'd like to share?
Everyone took the ones I have. So one of the things that I'm going to keep in the back of my mind is, just we've started off meetings with, different versions of how are you showing up. But I think that next step is if somebody, kind of does say something that's, giving them permission to just walk away from the meeting in that moment, I think is really powerful. Is, instead of just recognizing that they're struggling or they're tired or, somebody, you can just say, listen, we'll catch you up. Not a problem. If you want to, if you want to just take some time, go for it. Is really impactful. So thank you for that.
And that builds over time. You'll notice people will do it a little bit. And then like you do that for one person and everyone goes, oh, right? And then like you suddenly notice they're actually sharing more, right? In about you
Right.
do that for a month or 2 months, and all of a sudden they're actually telling you what's really going on. They're not hiding, they're not protecting themselves from all of that.
Right.
And you get it. I've had people say, I've been offered other jobs for more money, but like you, every time I show up and I have a problem, you show up and help me with it, or you give me permission. Like that's more valuable to them than all these other things, because you connect with them as a person.
I love what you just said there, because when we teach that, we teach the temperature check or some of these other check-ins like that. It's hard to begin with, right? There's this, the herd mentality. This is not what I do with that other team. This is not what I've been doing. And it's very, very uncomfortable to introduce something like that, but sticking with it for that month, and it's actually a number of iterations, right?
Mhm.
So it might be faster, it might be longer, depending on how often you meet, but that creating the new normal of that we care really does work. Just don't expect it to work the first time.
Yeah.
Just have courage, persist, because it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I'll just share one quick technique I've used repeatedly with teams in terms of getting them to talk about personal stuff, which is relatively easy for them to do. And I generally do this in the context of agile retrospectives because it's a good kind of team opportunity. And I've just done it with a new client I've started to say to them, for the next retrospective, I want you to find a photo of you doing something outside work that you're passionate about. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be a hobby, could be spending time with the kids, could be doing more coding if that's what you live and breathe for. But just find a photo, share it, and just tell us about it for a minute or two. And you will find that even the most reluctant, quiet person they'll suddenly open up and they'll talk about it because it's something they care about. They love talking about, they love doing. And that then spills over into being more willing to speak up about work stuff and be more open and contribute in meetings and everything else.
Love that.
Love it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Kim, Chris, thank you so much for putting this together, for sharing this with our community, for bringing the awesome to the group.
Thank you for having us.
I think we did it, everybody. I think we did it. So we should go about our days and have a wonderful, wonderful evening, day, whatever it is. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great one.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.